Joining me now on this episode of Locally Sourced CP is the host of Sports Talk 600 ESPN, the one and only Mr. Steve Kaplowitz. Mr. Kaplowitz, thank you for joining me today.
They'll call me Steve. That
Steve.
It's weird when you're doing this for so many years. Everybody's by their first name. We always have callers. We never say they're Mister. It's always the name of the caller. So yes, appreciate that, Ray. Thanks for having me.
Steve, I appreciate you jumping on. Just continuing my this little series of El Paso's media. You're probably one of the most recognized voices and people and names in El Paso as well. And I appreciate you coming on and just want to talk a little bit about, let's start on from the beginning, I guess you could say, is how did you get started in broadcasting or in the media? Was that your initial goal?
No, it wasn't. It's funny. My goal was to play baseball for the rest of my life, make millions of dollars, and never have to really work another day. But that didn't work out the way I expected it to. So got to college at University of Texas, 1991. Had done some newspaper work in Coronado and was thinking of doing the same thing. And when they told me that all I would do is grab scores and not get a chance to do any writing for the first year or two, I kind of soured on that. And that's when I was introduced to the student radio station out at the University of Texas called, at the time, KTSB. So student radio, cable FM, meaning you had to have a cable adapter into a stereo receiver in order to pick our channel up. But it was great. For 3 years, I did a radio show, a sports show there. They switched the call letters eventually to KVRX. And we, I would say just got my start doing it in college. So when I graduated in 95 and came back home, I kind of knew what I wanted to do, knew that I wanted to get into radio and particularly sports radio, and been really fortunate to been doing it all these years.
Yeah, Steve, you've been with the 600 ESPN for how long now?
So I started in the summer of 95, and actually there's 3 radio stations here. It's KLAQ, KSII, and then KROD, which is 600 ESPN El Paso. I started with Buzz. I started in the summer of 1995 working with Buzz, Patty, and Johnny Gonzalez on the Q Morning Show. And at that time, John Teicher was still doing sports talk with Duke Keith. So really, although we started doing weekends in crunch time, I think in the fall of 95, it didn't really turn into, for me, hosting sports talk regularly until the summer of 97. That's when John went to another station group with UTEP. We lost the contract, so I took over working for him back in those years.
Oh wow! I mean, you've been around. It's so cool that you ended up back home in El Paso doing. And this, I guess, would you call this something like your second love or your second passion that you kind of wanted to get into, especially since you got into the radio station over at UT?
No, I mean, this was my passion. I already knew that my baseball career was going nowhere at that time. So it was slow pitch softball in those days, trying to enjoy just the fun, the rush of playing. Sports has always been my passion. My dad, when we moved here from New York, was a huge sports fan. He had one of those large satellite dishes in the mid 80s when, he wanted to watch all the New York sports. So we put one of those in the backyard, and we were very much a sports family. We all played ball. We all, planned vacations around sporting events. So that was kind of the DNA for us. So for me, I would say, honestly, when I wanted to get into radio, that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do TV. I didn't want to do anything else. And having an opportunity to get into this business at a time when the internet was in its infancy, nobody knew what social media was back then, and the only time you really could break stories was to either get on the radio for our show every day, or Sports Center at night when you would watch that, because that was really the show that kind of told you all the scores, all the results, all the breaking news. I mean, it was what I always wanted to do. So honest to God, Ray, it's been really a dream come true for me to be doing it all these years.
That's so awesome. I mean, I have to admit that, my dream job, one of them was, DH in the MLB too, but I mean, it didn't pan out. So I'm not too sad about it. I've got, wife and kids, and I'm really happy and appreciate I can appreciate where you're coming from, and just I developed a passion for media right out of high school as well. And it just kind of just spiraled out of control thanks to, the likes of Axel over when I started over at Channel 4 and things like that, and just been doing it ever since. I think it was about like 2002 when I started doing that stuff.
That's great. I mean, I did TV for 7 years. I lost a bet, which is how I got into TV in the first place. So years ago, Richard Sines, who's now been in Phoenix forever, working at the Fox, doing the sports director over there. He was working here in El Paso, and he was the sports director for KDBC at the time. And we bet on the NBA Finals, and I lost the bet. And the bet was that whoever lost had to wash the station vehicle. So it was his Spurs against the Knicks, which is my team. We made the bet. I lost. I ended up having the Hooters girls wash the vehicle, which really made Richard happy. And after that little TV piece, he said, "Hey, why don't you come over here and we could use you and do weekends?" So for the next 7 years, off and on, I spent all that time working for different stations, doing weekend sports. But all at the same time, I was still doing sports talk here on 600 ESPN El Paso. So that's still been my main passion. And you're right. Once we knew our baseball careers were over, we had to come up with a plan B. So for me, plan B has definitely been a dream come true.
And I think I heard you talking one time to Bud. You're still playing some baseball, right?
So there's a Sandlot team, and what Sandlot basically means is it's a bunch of guys that really don't plan anything. It's very informal. We get together, we play. Usually there's beer involved, and everybody just has a really good time. So there's tournaments every year in Austin as well as Marfa. Played in Marfa before, done the Austin trip, and then now there's a couple of Sandlot teams in El Paso, so we all get together. My dream has always been to play in the 50 and over league, which now I qualify for. So I'm very excited about that. Just a matter of finding the time to play on weekends in that league because it's pretty competitive. A lot of guys in El Paso have been playing for years. They take it seriously. They throw hard. It's baseball rules. So that would probably be the next step for me is just getting a chance to play in that 50 and over league.
That's awesome. I mean, if you guys need an extra player, let me know.
Thank you.
I still got the gear downstairs in the garage. So
there you go. Well, it's fun. It's wood bats. I mean, so it's the real thing. And you could take leads and that, and that's been a lot of fun for me too. I want to play more, obviously, but I also have an 11-year-old who's playing 12U baseball right now.
Oh,
so
cool.
For me, my fix is always getting a chance to watch him play because he's a great athlete. It's fun to see your son, kind of try to play the sport, and when he plays it well, it's pretty exciting. But as long as they're having fun, that's all that matters.
Yeah, that is true. It's all that matters. As long as it's fun, because when it's not fun anymore, then it's not something they may not want. But I mean, I love baseball. I mean, I'll play it till I can't walk anymore. And I have this little thing where I refuse to play softball. I don't know what it is. I just don't want to play softball. I still think I can hang with the little kids, the high schoolers, even though they throw way harder than me. But I don't know. It's just I think it's a little bit of a pride thing that I don't want to play softball yet.
So I hear that, and I get it. At the same time, we had co-ed media league softball teams here in the 90s. We ended up winning the league 3 out of 4 years. Had a nice little dynasty going. And it was around the time the Yankees had their dynasty. So that was our version of it. And it was a blast. Then I went to play fast pitch softball, much different, much more like baseball. Yeah. They come at you. It's a fast pitch. The ball moves and rises, and the mound is so close to the plate, you don't really have a chance to react. So trust me, if you want to play baseball, but you don't want to play slow pitch softball, then try fast pitch softball. That might be a good little fix for you.
I think I might have to look into that, Steve. But I mean, just being I was going to ask you, being in this realm for so long in the media, do you have any anything that stands out, like memory wise, like any games that stick out that you've called or been a part of that you've covered that you'd share? That's always like one of your favorite stories.
Games, not necessarily. I mean, for me, I think the highlights have always been special broadcasts. So for example, we did a radio show with Don Haskins for 2+ years towards the end of his life. And I had hosted the Don Haskins radio show his last year at UTEP before he retired. So it was nice getting a chance to reunite with him. And we took those shows into 3 venues. We were starting at Fuddruckers when that was open on the west side. Then we went to the state line, and then we wrapped it up at Three-Legged Monkey. But getting a chance to see Coach every couple of weeks come out, talk some sports with us, have all these great guests, be in front of a live audience doing the radio show was probably, for me, the biggest highlight of my career professionally. But We did a bunch of shows on location in Vegas for every De La Hoya fight, because when Oscar fought here in '98, we were very much a part of it. And HBO and his promoter at the time, Bob Arum and Top Rank, said, why don't you guys come back and do some of these radio shows on location? We'll send you to Vegas and have you broadcast live. So we did a
Nice.
bunch of
Yeah, I
those.
remember.
That was always a big highlight, because we broadcasted on Radio Row, and then we got to watch the fight ringside. And that was something I'll never forget. And then broadcasting from New York after 9/11. It was a big deal. The terrorist attacks, in 2001 shook up the nation. And obviously we were, very much worried about our safety here. And New York was in trouble. So the following year, we rearranged a live broadcast from Mickey Mantle's restaurant. And I went up with Paul Strelzin. And at the time, he was hosting Back Talk for us, which was our morning show. So Paul ended up broadcasting Back Talk Live from New York. I broadcasted Sports Talk Live, and being there just so soon after 9/11, but showing everybody that it's okay to be back in New York and they're going to be recovering. And that was a pretty emotional time for me, because I'm originally from New York. Was born in Brooklyn, lived in Long Island, Massapequa Park before we moved here to El Paso in the late 70s. So it was nice just to get back home, and getting a chance to broadcast from New York was always a big thrill too.
Man, that sounds like an amazing experience, and just like being able to and thank you for sharing that. I mean, that just knowing that you were able to do that just to kind of help heal like the city and the nation. I mean, just spread the word. Like you said, it was okay to go back to New York and to do things normal. That was, I mean, everyone I think that was alive around that time could probably remember what happened, what they were doing, what they were eating, what they were wearing. I mean, it's just like a memory that I think that's just burned into your memory. It's just a memory burned into your head that that you're never going to forget that. And just
No, you're right.
Just like the way people like handled it and just like cope with it, and just helped everyone get over it and make kind of feel, I guess, go back to normal. Yeah, because that was a weird time.
It took a while to go back to normal. It really did. I remember still going to the 2001 World Series later that year, which was only about a month or a month and a half after the attacks, because it was being played in Phoenix. It was the Diamondbacks against the Yankees. And I remember going to, I think it was game 1 in Phoenix, and there were armed guards everywhere. I mean, you had, machine guns and very, very tight security. And, still people were very much on edge. It was an emotional time, especially when President Bush at the time threw out the first pitch. A lot of people were, it brought everybody together. So, yeah, it's crazy. September 11th is my mom's birthday. So I'll never forget when the phone rang and it was my dad. And we thought he was calling for us to say happy birthday to my mom. His first reaction was turn on the TV. And that's when we had a chance to really see the Twin Towers and the attacks. And it's a surreal moment, even all these years later, thinking about that.
Yeah, true. I mean, it's just like I said, it's burned in my memories, and I'll never forget that whole day. It was just it was a crazy time for us here. And I mean, switching gears real quick, Steve. I mean, talking a little bit about being media, broadcast. Anyone who what would be your advice for anyone trying to get in the business that wanted to do this, that has a passion for not only like sports talk or covering sports, but being in the media in general? What would your advice to them be?
I mean, I think now it's easier to get into the media than it was when I started. When I started, I did this in college. I got my degree in broadcast journalism, so I kind of knew this was something I wanted to do. But now that podcasts have become so popular, and people are, exactly that if you have good mic skills, and you've got a computer and you have the passion and the drive, you can develop a following. You can absolutely kind of cut your teeth in this business and perfect your craft as you continue to evolve as a podcaster. I mean, that's the way to do it, is just don't stop and don't quit. We've got somebody who joins us on our show once a week, Lane Frank. He's 15 years old. He started his podcast when he was 12. I mean, it's crazy. And he's been doing it now for the last 2+ years, 3 years almost. And when you see him and you're thinking, wow, he started this at 12. I mean, that's 7th grade. You can't even imagine, and he's gotten better and better. And it's so much fun to have him on, because I could see him doing this as he continues to get older and grow. So again, it's just a matter of the desire, wanting to do it, wanting to get better, and just, pursuing your dream. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, that's good advice. I mean, I started this kind of like as right when the pandemic happened, just trying to help out some family and friends that have local businesses, like food trucks and restaurants, just trying to help them out, spread the word that they were still open, that there was ways to get to them, and I just kind of decided to keep going with it. I mean, I know I don't have a huge following, but I mean, just anything I could do to help local, I'm always supporting local, and I appreciate like you, Steve, coming on the show, just talking about yourself and being in the broadcast biz, and just chatting with me. It makes my day, and it like gets me excited to keep doing this thing.
All right, well, let's put it this way. Not everybody is doing this to try to get rich and make money. Some
Mhm.
people are doing this just for like yourself to enjoy what they do, to help others, spread the word locally. I mean, I really appreciate that because, again, 30 years ago when I started, you couldn't do that. You had to get into this business either as a disc jockey or a talk show host. And it was tough. I mean, there weren't a lot of radio stations in El Paso that were talk related. So and music wise, a lot of the voices were legendary DJs that have been around forever, like Steve Kaplowitz,
Yeah.
Magic Mike, and so on and so forth. So you go down the list, and it's difficult. But podcasts have really kind of opened the doors for so many people that just want to connect with everybody, their audience, and new people and new followers. So yeah, it's definitely I think a pretty big benefit when it comes down to it.
Yeah, Steve, it is, and it's basically it's helped a lot of like it's helped me like not grow a little bit, but also at least spread the word. Like I said, I just had a little passion just to support local businesses here and things
Sure.
like that, and it does make it easier because when I got into the when I got into media with over at KDBC, I mean I had to volunteer. I volunteered for like I think 2 years, and then they finally offered me a job because I mean I kept coming back like Axel said, he told them, he's like, this kid keeps coming back and he's better than some of the editors we have and photogs, and he's listening, so let's give him a job. So they offered me a part-time job on the weekend, and I guess you could say the rest is history.
No, that's great. I mean, I started in radio as an intern here in the summer of 95. When I was working with Buzz, I wasn't hired full time to begin. I was just told they'll give me a chance to come in and help out. So I was an intern, unpaid, graduated from UT. But at the same time, I was just trying to get my feet wet as well. And I was working at Sunland Park Mall at Camelot Records back in
Mhm.
those days, or Camelot Music. So one day I went to a wedding in Austin, and when I called in for my hours, they gave me the wrong hours. So I showed up following the wedding and they fired me on the spot. It was a new manager. They were trying to get rid of all the old people and they were using any excuse they could. So when they said, well, you missed your shift. I said, well, I called in and they gave me the wrong shift. They said, no, that's no excuse. It's cause for termination. As soon as I told the radio station that I had no job, that's when they decided, all right, we're going to, remove the internship label and hire you on part-time. And I think I
Mhm.
remember my first salary was like $14,000, and I thought I won the lottery. I was super excited, and all I was all I could think about was having a chance to do this full time, which was obviously what I've always wanted.
Oh, and the rest is history, as they say.
That's right. That's right.
Well, see, where you're on 600 ESPN El Paso here in here in El Paso, and when can people hear you on the radio, and where can they find you if anything on social media?
Okay, well, I'll make it easy. My social media is my name, Steve Kaplowitz, on Twitter or X, how we call it now.
Right.
I'm also on Facebook. Just trying to get into Instagram. I'm not, when you've done something a certain way all these years, it's difficult to change formats. So Instagram, I know it's all about photos. I'm new to that format. But really, Facebook and for me, X or Twitter is my number one way to communicate. So it's at Steve Kaplowitz on social. And then the radio show has been the same all these years, 4 to 7 o'clock, Monday through Friday. Sometimes we air Chihuahuas baseball. Sometimes we air UTEP and coaches shows. So we're not always on for 3 hours. We have NFL games, and that changes it a little bit too. But that's the best way to catch me. And then I pop in with Buzz after all these years. I still like to join him a couple of times a week. Normally in the 9 to 10 o'clock hours, but you sometimes could catch me in the 8 to 9 o'clock hour if I'm here at the station early enough.
Oh, Steve, thanks, man. I'll make sure I'll include all the information description below. And anything else you want to say, Rad, before we end today, sir?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody. I mean, the one thing I'll say is this, I never thought I would be doing this as many years as I have, really in the town I grew up in and have so many friends here. And getting a chance to just interact with people wherever I go. If they don't know me by face, they might hear the voice and they recognize me. It's really it's been terrific. I wouldn't be doing this all these years if it wasn't for the listeners and the people that have supported me and the station since really I got started in this business. So I guess the thing I want to say most is thank you to everybody for supporting, for listening, and for being so gracious to me every chance I get a chance to be on the radio. It's really it's touching, and it means more than sometimes than people realize.
Steve, no, thank you for coming on, and thank you for being a part of El Paso for so long and coming back. And sir, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Ray, I enjoyed it. Let's do it again.
Yes, sir. Sounds good. Thanks.